Gather round. It's time for your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. Listen closely as your coaches discuss the culture, the economy, and the political scene, and how it affects your home and your real estate investments. Real Estate Chalk Talk is where you learn the science of buying and selling real estate and the art of living in your home. Your education begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, welcome to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. HittnerGroup.com, Hittner Group.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. And we are in the pre-market warm-up phase. We're in the playoff stages of the big.
The inventory increasing, is it running up?
No. We're in the football playoff stage. That's the pre-market stage for real estate, coming up to Super Bowl when the kickoff happens. The real estate market, actually, when the last touchdown is scored, the real estate market begins. In earnest, the very next day, and so all the attention then is focused on moving and selling, and boy, we're going to have a robust year this year. Holy buckets. Sales are going to be up. Prices are going to be up. All the forecasts are conflicting with one another.
They are conflicting.
Realtor.com says it's going to be, prices are going to actually go down a little bit, and the Fannie and Freddie.
What was that article I shared with you the other day? I don't remember what it was.
That was a Realtor.com.
Is that where it came from?
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
I watched actually.
No, it was a Zillow guy.
Yeah, but it was Zillow.
Yeah,
it was Zillow. Yeah, there's it's quite a bit too. They were like
3%.
Yeah, oof, I don't believe that for a second.
So you say up, you say down, and I say flat. So we'll see who's right.
Well, we're conflicting as well.
I'll be right. I'm always right. It'll be up 2.5% minimum. Might be more, but 2.5%. Think of the pent-up demand, kids. You got people who have been wanting to move for 2 years now. They've been locked in because of these high exorbitant interest rates that Calvin's
charging. It was like
charging.
a 6-month period. The 8% thing was like a summer deal.
Seems like 2 years.
Yeah.
Seems like it's been forever.
It was a blip.
Trust me.
It was a blip. I bet it does. I bet it does. It does seem like it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But we had a slowdown starting in 2021, fall of. And things started to change. You could see it. And, hopefully we're on the tail end of that with, like you say, the pent-up demand. We'll see. I think we're going to be, flat to down like we had talked about.
Well, speaking of inventory run-up, just look at it now. We got 4,900 homes on the market, 7-county metropolitan area. 4,900
That's
homes.
up.
A year ago, it was 4,500.
Yeah.
See? 400 more homes to look at. Think about that. And
that's part of the conversation is that inventory is increasing, longer market times. Certainly it's going to have an impact on overall valuation.
I don't think so much, because if you look at what the inventory was in
no, I think you're actually wrong.
It's all pre. You got to forget about the COVID years, because they were a unicorn. I mean, they were unicorn years. They were just, everything was out of whack. So you have to almost go back to 2019, because that was the last normal year. Our inventory at 2019 was about 6,000 homes right now. Okay. So we're still, 1,000 homes or 1,100 homes on the market less than we were then. Fewer homes, supply and demand, basic economics. We have a lot of pent-up demand.
Is inventory higher just because homes are on the market longer than they were a year ago? Could that have anything or not?
I think that's some of it. It's that they're just not flowing through as fast as it were.
What's average days on market right now for
let's just look at that. What is the average days on market? 44.
Okay.
44, 45, 60, depending on the counties. Different counties, significant.
Counties?
Yeah.
Not cities, counties.
Well, cities too, but like Carver County, there are, longer market times. Some Dakota County is still pretty quick.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The city impact is real, though.
City impact is
when you
very
talk
real.
about, just if we look at Dakota County where we all reside and spend a lot of time in, when you have areas like Lakeville with a ton of inventory that's not even included in any of these stats that he's talking about right here, in looking at new construction right now with clients in Lakeville, there's plenty of inventory that's not even included in the overall inventory numbers.
Really? Okay.
Builders are pulling houses, they're dropping their prices listings are expiring before they're selling. They're relisting those properties at lower dollar amounts.
Okay.
So the dollar amount or the offer price is real different. We talk about builders incentivizing to not reduce price,
right?
But they're incentivizing and reducing price right now in areas like Lakeville, as an example. And there are other areas like that around the metro area where there is this, we talked a lot about shadow inventory just 10 years ago or so, a little bit longer, 15 years ago with the foreclosure environment that we were in, where we were like, oh, the banks were holding all the shadow inventory and it's not on the market. And that whole conversation we had, it's very similar with builders. Builders are long on land. They have a lot available, and so they are incentivizing with, finished basements that are going to be finished, or free finished basements. Of course, the interest rate incentive, buying blocks of money essentially, and being able to offer, 499 financing or sometimes less, to try to move property through, doing everything they can not to reduce price. But we are seeing price reductions in areas like that.
What's interesting is D.R. Horton sent out an email blast with a big announcement: to-be-builts are back. So that's
really?
That's an indicator to me, is that the market has slowed for them, and so they're not running out and building a bunch of spec houses because they're worried that they're going to wind up sitting on them.
Right. We got ourselves in a situation. Boy, what was it, 2019, 2020, and into 2021 where, basically they were taking a hat, putting names in it, and drawing names out of the hat to see who won in order to have an opportunity to put an offer in on a property. So they had not to-be-builts, but spec homes that they were just building. You weren't
fast as they could, right?
Yes, you weren't able to go in and choose cabinet colors and flooring choices and countertops and finishes at all. They were just building to what 80% of the market would buy anyways, and saying, here's a house, it's available, who wants it, 40 names in a hat, John Smith and Susie Q, you have an opportunity, do you want it? If not, we'll go to the next one down the line. The environment was crazy for a
question for you. Why don't the builders have their inventory? Because you mentioned a couple times it doesn't reflect the builder's inventory.
Well, it's land.
Aren't they required?
So they do have, they'll have
the model.
A model home, or they have specs, or they have deals that have fallen apart. So we had a lot of transactions fall apart, not us specifically, but the real estate community and the overall market in the metro area. A lot of transactions fell apart when you guys raised interest rates like you did.
Yep.
So, they just couldn't afford it. So homes were being built in process, and then the deal falls apart, and now we have this quote inventory home that's on the market that they're trying to move.
Okay.
And so that will be on the market. Spec home will be on the market. They will put a couple of to-be-builts on so they can advertise their product.
Okay.
But then there's 60 lots available.
Okay.
So that's the increase, and that's the quote shadow inventory that I talk about. That within a development, maybe 5 of them are on the market, so they have each one of their models on the market. But then another 60 opportunities for people to build property. So you multiply that by the number of builders in a given community, and then the amount of developments that there are, and you have a much different number than what might be published in terms of actual inventory available for sale. So when you're a seller in a resale market, like I have a seller in Lakeville with a nice Rambler property, it's 3,300 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, great big, it's a 2-car garage plus an extension on it.
Right.
A house like that, you're competing directly, and it's a 2016 build. So you're competing directly with new construction. So you have to understand
better price then, or how do you play that?
Well, certainly it has to be less than, somebody's never sat on that toilet. Somebody's never, cooked in that kitchen.
New car effect.
Sure, it's a new car effect. So you're going to pay a little bit more money for new construction. So you have to pay attention to new construction prices. And when builders are incentivizing with financing incentives, free finish quote, free finished basements, it's built into the cost, free finished basements, and they're reducing pricing, then as a seller of a resale market, you have to look at that and say, okay, here's my competition. How can we compete with that?
But I had 2 pre-drywall meetings this week, one in Minnetrista and one in Lakeville. And I talked to the different job soups, different developments, and said, how busy are you? And they're busy.
Sure, I don't disagree with that.
Both said, we have 25, 30 builds going on right now that he is personally doing. He said he's maxed out. They can't do anymore. So, it's not like there's nothing to do, and it isn't to the point where they're like, geez, I hope somebody sells something this week.
No, and I don't disagree with that. And
he did say, though, that that their pipeline was definitely slowing down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you look at, and we'll wrap up on this thought, you look at D.R. Horton and Lennar and a lot of these local semi-custom home builders, their ad budgets are quite different than, Susie Q selling their house in Lakeville. So we only have so much money to spend. They have corporate ad dollars.
Right.
And so they're driving to these developments, and they're far more capable of selling this new construction product. The competition is so fierce when you're selling your own home. So
well, we'll find out how values are determined. When we come back.
Give us a call, 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000. Remember to always log on to our website, hittnergroup.com, Hittner group.com, and we'll be right back.
And now, we return to the purveyors of real estate knowledge, your Real Estate Chalk Talk.
Welcome back to your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group, 612-627-8000. 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling. Be happy to have a chat with you about your move this coming spring. 612-627-8000. Okay, I'm all excited because we got Zoe Liston in the studio. Now, I went to a training on a course at SPAR, and I thought I was going to... SPAR, St.
Nice.
Paul Area Association of Realtors.
Okay, thank you.
St. Paul Area Association of Realtors. Thank you, Calvin. And so I went to this training thinking, this will be an easy one. I'll just kind of slide in, sit there, nod my head, and then walk out the door with a couple of credits.
Try not to fall asleep.
That's your view.
That was my view of that one.
That's awful.
Doesn't sound very open and receptive to new information.
I was not being open and receptive at the beginning. But Zoe gets up there and she starts talking about appraisals, and before long she kind of sucked me in.
Doggone it.
And it was actually...
Now you're paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
Doggone it.
Nobody falls asleep in my classes.
No, exactly. It was an interesting thing.
Do you carry a ruler or something? Is that why?
No, I'm entertaining.
Okay.
No, I'm really good at what I do.
So what I'd like to know, who hasn't, as a loan officer or as an agent, blamed a file falling apart on the appraiser?
Well, it's typically well placed.
Yeah. So the question is
it's warranted.
It's warranted.
Give me your opinion. I don't need your opinion. I need facts.
You hired us for our opinion. It says it's an opinion of value.
Yeah.
So where does that opinion come from?
3 appraisals.
If you were, because when we price a house as a real estate agent, this is how I explain it. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. When I price a house, we talk about appraisals with the seller all the time. This thing has got to appraise. This is what we're going to put it in the market on. It could sell for more, could sell for less, but this has to appraise unless someone's going to pay cash. So we are forward thinking. So when I part of my evaluation is, where are we today? What's our competition? How much volume is going through this community? Is it a high demand community or a less demand community? Because that all impacts on how much we can get someone to make an offer for. You're looking at historical data, am I right?
Yes.
She looks backwards, you look forward. That's
right.
What you're
She
saying.
looks backwards. She's in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
You're the dreamer. We're the fact people.
You're the dreamer.
Okay.
This is the hope for price.
Yeah, the hope for price, and you're the real price. What's the most important thing that you look at?
Oh, there's a lot of most important things.
Okay.
But of course, the old rule of real estate is location.
Oh.
We have to be in the same neighborhood. We have to be in the same market area. But we always look backwards because we have proof that somebody was willing to pay that for that house. You've seen examples where people list a house for $3 million and after 3 years it sells for 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
If we based a sale on another appraisal on that $3 million value, we'd be dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at the sold ones because that's where we have proof somebody was willing to pay that. Somebody was probably willing to appraise it for that. Somebody was probably willing to give the loan on that. So that's why we look backwards. On the appraisal itself, on page 1, there is a section that asks about the market, if it's declining or increasing, and if values are going up or down, if what the days on market is. So we are looking at the current market also, but we're basing it on what actually happened.
How much weight do you give to the current market? I mean, do you have a period where the market's improving drastically and quickly, and so you say, oh, I can give a little more weight to that now because I'm protected?
Well, look what we went through in 2020, 2021. I mean, values were going up, multiple offers, everybody's way overvaluing I mean, you guys pre-sold your increases for the next few years.
Right. It makes it tough, though,
Right.
because the appraisals couldn't keep up with that because the price people were paying was ridiculous. There was
Right.
no proof
Agreed.
of that. On the other hand, the cash buyers, even though it keeps the lower end people out of the market, the cash buyers are the ones that help the market go up because then they become a comp.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pay $50,000 more than the house is worth, next time somebody's trying to buy a house, they're using yours as a comp.
Right, and there was a lot of that going on where there was the appraisal gap coverage happening and things like that. So that helps to kind of bolster what the actual buyer is willing to buy and seller is willing to sell for,
Right.
thereby increasing the overall appraised dollar amount.
Right.
So as an appraiser then, with that multiple offer situation, because we still have them going on today, not maybe we don't have 20, but we might have 4
Right.
on a given property. Does that impact you as an appraiser? Say, look, we have 4 people wanting to buy this house. Only one of them gets it.
It depends on the appraiser.
Uh-huh.
I've heard it from both sides. For me, because I'm a realtor also, I know what's happening, what goes on that side with people bidding it up. So yes, I look at that. I ask the realtors what happened, how long were you on the market, how many offers did you have. A lot of appraisers will ask for the front page with the names redacted to have proof that you did have those offers.
Oh, okay.
So that we can say, because an appraisal is written for the underwriter. We write it for the underwriter to read it so the underwriter understands what's happening in the market. So we are talking to them. So if we can tell them what's happening, okay, this house was on the market for 2 days and they had 75 showings and 18 offers.
Right.
That does say something. There are other appraisers out there that say, I don't care.
Right, and different price points have different velocity of the market too. So you can be in like an 800 to $1.2 million price bracket versus 300 to 400.
Yes.
And those are two distinctly different markets.
Right.
Yes.
And so one may be a situation where you're in a community where there's very little inventory and you have multiple people wanting to buy that property, and another is in, that higher level price point where it's the velocity of the market is not the same.
Right.
There are not multiple people. It's been on the market for 180 days. I mean, that's where I get into a situation where I'm like, guys, it's, here's this, here's that. Excuse me, it's not always black and white in terms of what's going on that particular property.
Right. Prices do change a lot. Also, just in our range of value, on the lower end, there's no range of value because people only have so much money and there are only so many houses. Once you're up in the millions, like, I don't care. Here's another 50,000.
Yeah, we
we
talk about it a lot. Like, what makes $1.5 million home $2 million? The location is one of them. The site, all those things. But
the kitchen.
But they're so small. And how much more value do you give over the next one? That's a challenging part. That's got to be a challenging part.
It is easier to appraise in the lower end because you have model matches, you have exact comps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get a condo building. Oh, look, everything sold for 125. No,
Right.
you're not worth 130 because I have 17 comps that sold at 125.
Oh, come on, $5,000. Let's make,
$5,000.
How much? So that's ridiculous. So
if you would have said 150, then I would have been.
then I would
saying,
have.
No,
yeah, I
I'm
get
going to
that.
argue. I'm going to argue.
We've had appraisals come in literally 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, less than sales price.
Thank you for not saying low. I know you wanted
Less
to.
than, yeah.
So,
But that's ridiculous because it's also subjective. You say we want your opinion. Yep, I want your opinion, but
To match mine.
well, give me a break. I mean, you've lost your mind on deals
Yes,
that we've
I
had.
have.
So he
Yes.
says that nicely now. Ha ha ha. Not really when.
got to be nice to the guest.
Yeah.
Appraisals
So-
are based on fact and opinion. We're going off the facts that are in MLS, the fact of what things sold for. But then, yes, there is some opinion involved in there, partly because condition of the home is partly opinion, right? We are not allowed to give a range of values. When you do a market analysis, as a realtor, you get to give a range of values.
Right.
Hey, you might sell for 350, you might sell for 375. Let's try somewhere in there. I have to give an exact number. Now, if I have a condo where nothing has ever sold for over 150 and you sold for 155, I'm probably not going to come in at 155. There are times when I do, but almost never. Not almost never. Not very often. It is very
I
hard.
feel like she's backpedaling. Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Because the
felt that.
answer to every single question in appraising is it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
right.
the answer to every question. But if I have a range on my page of what my comps came out to and say they range between 140 and 160 and you sold at 155 and I decided it's 145, you're within my range. I'm going to go back and look at that. When I get the purchase agreement, I don't look at the price on it. I do my appraisal first, and then I look at my number and look at the purchase agreement. And if I'm within a reasonable range and it makes sense and I can justify that, and yeah, that's just a little bit off. Yeah, I will bump it up to what it is because I am not doing an exact science. And that's not unethical to bump it up a little bit because we are working with a range and we are putting more weight on certain comps.
And you have the third party over here that actually decided they want to buy the house for that amount of money. And if it's in that range, what's to say it's not?
If it's a reasonable range and it's not doing anything unethical and it's not beyond what makes sense, then I won't do it.
How much weight or
Not an
latitude do you have
exact science.
on condition,
Wrote that down.
condition,
Going back to my
and
appraisal.
cleanliness? Condition and cleanliness.
It's hard to separate those sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
We are trained to go in and not look at the personal property, right? We're not considering their stoves because they're not built in, their refrigerators, things like that. But sometimes it is hard to look past that. I advise realtors to tell their clients, their sellers, to go ahead and try to keep the property clean because sometimes the day the purchase agreement comes in, they just trash the home again.
Sure.
Because even though we know not to look at cleanliness, it still does affect you when you walk in. And and sometimes it's valid. The smells can affect the value.
Right.
But
and the condition and the appraisal has a great weight on the overall transaction. So let's not start moving until after the appraisal is done and we know that that's taken place. So don't start emptying your house out and moving things around.
Yes.
Keep it show ready for our appraisers to come in and evaluate that house. We're going to head to break here on that. We'll be right back and talk more appraisals when we return, maybe some other things too. Hittner Group, hittnergroup.com, Hittner Group.com.
And now, we return to the purveyors of real estate knowledge, your Real Estate Chalk Talk.
Hey, welcome back to the program. Thanks for staying with us. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group at Coldwell Banker Realty. HittnerGroup.com, Hittner Group.com, HittnerGroup.com, 612-627-8000. That's the number you see in all the signs around town. Give it a call. You're probably sitting in front of a lovely home on a quiet tree-lined street that you would love to live in. Okay, I got a couple of questions here. You're raising your hand. Do you have something?
Well, I always have. So go ahead. No, I'm just going to
write
write my questions down. So then hopefully there's a time where you slow and I can
where I
ask
stop talking.
Yep, that'd
Good
be great.
luck on that. If you've got something, Kelvin, then just go ahead and spit it out.
No,
he's got a whole page of notes.
I know it, but he'll throw it away when we walk out the door.
Well, I do because it shows.
I have a question about the kind of like going back in the history because we always refer to, or many times we refer to Dodd-Frank, and Dodd-Frank was like the big turning point in how appraisals were done and how mortgages were made. And can you just explain to us what impact that had on appraisals and on market values?
Well, it shouldn't have had anything to do with market values, but appraising is a relatively new profession. Appraisals exist to protect the lender.
Okay.
It is not your buyer's appraisal. Yes, they pay for it, but they also pay the light bill at the loan officer.
Are they suing the mortgage companies now because they're paying for someone else's service to benefit the mortgage company?
Let's
That's
not
kind of
talk
what
about
we're getting
that.
sued for.
Let's not talk about that part.
Okay.
But whenever something goes wrong in the real estate market, new regulations come out.
All right.
So Dodd-Frank was trying to just enforce what already should have been enforced before. Appraisers get paid for the report, not for the result, not for the answer. You pay me to do an appraisal to give you my opinion, not to agree with what you think it should be. And unfortunately, in the past, it was always difficult to get, not always, sometimes difficult to get paid if the appraisal didn't come out what the loan officer wanted it to be.
Sure.
So Dodd-Frank was a series of regulations
That makes sense.
to try to control that, to make sure that appraisers got paid, because that involved all kinds of fraud. If you only get paid if you lie, then you're going to start lying.
Right.
So, so it put in some breaks between the loan officer and the appraiser to make sure that the appraiser got paid, so the appraiser was more willing and able to tell the truth.
Just a separation there. Not much different. I'm a certified public accountant as well, so I used to audit Fortune 500 companies, and we would render an opinion on the financial of the company, on the financial health and well-being of the company, and that was an opinion. Sometimes it was, they're not very healthy. Well, that was in the opinion, and you're the same way. I can see that. What about the pressure of, or the influence then on values that people had when it used to be? I mean, we used to own an appraisal company when it was back in the day, So it was like we'd call up and say, "I need this number," and
That was a problem.
and you would get that number.
I wasn't involved in any of those conversations.
No.
you
not
you weren't
involved.
born yet, right?
No, I was, and I was in the business, but I just want to make it clear that I was not involved in any of those conversations.
Well, it's
whereas
just
I
all
was-
part. Well, we're asking for an opinion in advance. This is what I'm looking at. I need this number. Can I get that number?
Yeah, I don't think we ever said I have to have this
No.
number. I'm trying,
But people,
Is it reasonable?
But people did
Yeah.
say that all the time.
Okay.
Really
So
shocking.
back in the days that led up to the 2007 issues, appraisers got blamed for a lot of that, and rightly so to some degree. But that was back in the day of doing orders by fax. And so I had a new mortgage company that just started up, and I was going to be their appraiser for all their appraisals. And so I sent order forms to them with all their information so they could just send me the order, and I'd have all the information. Within 2 minutes of me sending that over, I got a call from the owner. Where do we put the price on here? Like, you don't. That's what you're hiring me to tell you.
Right.
But he was just flabbergasted. He's like, well, I have to be able to tell you what we need.
Right.
So,
What we need.
Yeah, that's not the way it's supposed to
Is
be
there
done.
a difference then between a refinance appraisal and a purchase appraisal?
Difference is that we don't have a purchase agreement to look at. So if I come down to that, 500.
You just told me you didn't look at it, so what difference?
But I don't look at it until the end.
She does look at it, she said.
I don't look at the value on it until the end.
Okay.
So if I come in at $450 and it sold for, on a sale, if it sold for $451, I would make it to what, $451.
Okay.
So there's not fluctuation there, but otherwise it's the same process.
All right.
It's the same home visit. It's the same comps. It's nothing different as far as that goes.
So because refinances is where it's really challenging, especially right now. There's a lot of cash out refinances because there's so much equity in these homes. So then to get an idea of value going in, we have to call the real estate people. We ask them, hey, what do you think this home is worth?
Right.
They're doing a freebie then for us to
Right.
give us a ballpark to see if it works in the numbers, and then it goes to you, and it's a blank slate. And now suddenly we're like hoping that
And remember, they are the dreamers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
because it's a job of the realtor to get as much money as possible for
Right.
their clients.
Right.
It's totally legitimate that you're the positive people.
Leaning forward.
Yes.
Yeah. What about the differences between, and when you're looking at a house, I'm thinking about the criteria that you use to determine value. So how important is the room configuration? Like, you'll have a house that's the same square footage. One has 5 bedrooms, one has 4 bedrooms, one has a den. How does that matter to you at all?
Yes, but not always. In that generally, if we're in the same neighborhood, in the same style of house, if I'm appraising a 2-story, I'm going to look at other 2 stories. Chances are they're going to be pretty much the same floor plan, just because of the D.R. Hortons and things like that. I mean, even the 1940s World War houses, they're all exactly the
same
same.
or similar.
Right.
You know the floor plan when you
Right,
walk in.
right.
Some sellers get really angry that I'm only in a house for 10 minutes. I'm
Right.
Like,
I've
seen
been
it.
in this house 178 times.
Yeah.
The bedroom count matters sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. If you have an executive rambler that just has that one big primary suite on the main floor, that's great if it's an executive rambler. If it's a small rambler and you just have one bedroom, it's not very functional. But if it's the executive type where it's a high-end property and all that, they only want one upstairs and make the teenage kids sleep downstairs. There's almost no difference between, in most markets, everything depends on what neighborhood you're in, but there's almost no difference between 4-bedroom and 5-bedroom. Nobody needs 5 bedrooms. This is not 1940 when you're pumping out farm workers.
Right. We talk about that a ton with our sellers is that, if you go from 2 to 3, that's a big deal.
Yes,
if you go
very
from
big
4 to
deal.
5, not that big of a deal. And 5 to 6 is nothing.
Right.
So the valuation of these, if you have 4 bathrooms versus 5, you're not getting a ton more money.
Right.
But if you go from 2 to 3, it's a totally different house. It means you probably
Exactly.
have a master bath. The layout's a bit different. Like, these things make a difference.
Exactly.
These other things, not so much.
Well, and historically, realtors have been taught that more bedrooms means more money. So I have people constantly emailing me, talking to me, say, can I call this a bedroom? Can I call this a bedroom? Like, it doesn't matter. It's
That's
just
finished.
a room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's finished square footage.
You made a comment earlier about a couple times now, and I'm upset about it.
Okay.
And
Oh,
that is
boy.
that the realtors are dreamers, and they need to get their job is to get the most money for you as possible.
That you shouldn't be
And
mad
I
about that.
And I disagree. I mean, I'm not mad about it. I'm just joking. But
Oh,
I just
inside, though,
I
he is.
disagree because my point, and this is just my business, is that my job is to educate you on the market and explain to you how the market impacts the value of your home. And then, yes, we'll give a range, and we want to be within that reasonable range. And I don't think it's that much different than what an appraiser is doing, because ultimately the appraiser's job is to come in and justify all of that. And if we're not on the same page, to me, if we're not on the same page, me and the appraiser, then I did something wrong in the process. Now, if it's sold, great. But in a lot of cases, especially in a market we're in right now, it's not going to. So if you didn't do a good job of educating the client on the market, explaining where your realistic value range is, and then being within that realistic value range in order to gain property views and traffic to sell the home, then there's a disconnect in the entire process.
You're
And
right.
we don't
Yes.
want that.
Yes.
It's not going to close then.
No, and that's good. There are too many realtors out there who don't understand the appraisal process and don't educate the sellers, right? Because the sellers have to know reality.
Right.
Hey, your house might be where we might be able to get 600 for it, but likely we only be able to appraise for this amount. So let's prepare for that.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right.
And admittedly, for me, it's a challenge in my business, because there are people, what I call it buying a listing.
Yeah.
So they'll
Oh,
come in
absolutely.
and they will dream and they will puff your head and they'll tell you a number that's not realistic. And then that house will be on the market for 6 months and drop. Maybe they sell it and they hate that agent now because they dropped the price so many times. And I didn't get the business.
Right.
You know, there are many times where I've gone and been like, hey guys, you know, I think $499 is your top, and I wouldn't go $1 over that. Now, if you want to, I certainly will, but this is what the market is saying. And
Yes.
somebody else comes in and says $575, and they get the listing and I don't.
As
you
long
know?
as you're
And it sells
educating
at
them.
$499.
And it sells at $480, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and
That's a
yeah, you've got to
yeah.
educate your sellers, and that's awesome that you're doing that. Keep in mind also that those sellers have heard what the other houses around them were listed for. They never heard what they actually sold for.
Right.
They always hear that the original
Oh,
list
that's-
price in their
that's a
heads.
good. That's
Yeah.
a great point.
Can I have a complaint about one word you used?
Yeah, sure.
Appraisal.
Justify. I
saw you react.
Okay, I know the 100% of your job is not to justify the purchase agreement.
My job
Totally-
is to protect the lender.
Yes, that is your job, and I apologize
Thank
for saying
you.
that. In my
Thank you.
mind, your job is to come in and justify everything that just took place, because then I can be right. Right?
That is one of the most important things in the world.
In counseling, he's
Me
got
being
some,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
It's
of course.
counseling. It's a
Well,
lot
on that note, we're gonna head out to break.
Good Lord.
This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com, HITTNER group.com. There you can check your home value, not an appraisal. You can check your home value. You can search for property or
appraise
connect
for
with
it.
us online,
Good luck.
hittnergroup.com, or call us, 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000, and we'll be right back.
But we're gonna wrap.
Money in the bank.
Rates are good. Pretty exciting. You know why? Free money. You understand what I'm saying?
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk and the money segment of the big program. Calvin Kamick, ladies and gentlemen, from Loan Depot. What do you got, Calvin?
Oh, we got a lot of stuff. I got appraisal questions that we're going to hit. But
Okay.
I'm just going to hit some things first. We're just going to hammer through things fast. Election year. A lot of people are asking, election year doesn't matter. Should I wait further in the season, do this, do that? Election year has historically had no bearing. The year that we're in has no bearing on it.
Yep.
The administration that rolls in will have an impact on mortgage interest rates.
We won't
but
feel
not-
that for 18 months.
Correct. So election year, not a lot of impact. Headlines this week: highest jump in rates in the last month. Again, everybody needs a headline. They did go up a little bit. So 30-year fixed money was between six and mid sixes. I can't say rates because then not the appraiser, but then someone else will be critical of me. So we'll be mid sixes to high sixes, right? But we're hugging high right now. We're hugging high sixes versus hugging mid. So
But easy enough to get to low.
Yep. We're okay there. And so we had some economic data that came out. Retail sales were stronger than expected for December, which makes sense because it was December.
Yeah.
It's Christmas. Come
I
on.
know. They always say
Stop.
like it's shocking.
Everything, I'm just so, it's so stupid. Rates, we were talking at coffee, just what percentage of rates are under 6%. It's like 88 to 90% are under 6, 80% are under 5. So that does have a little bit of a bearing, but we're
I think
getting,
80% under 5 is a huge number. to
I do
me.
too.
Mhm.
That's
I
a
mean,
lock
that's a
in right
big
there.
number, and
It's a
those
lot.
people are not moving up sideways. They're sitting really nice, and
Unless
those are
they have to.
and those are most of those are families that are going to be in their homes for a period of time, and if something changes, then they'll look at an opportunity to move up. Hopefully that changes soon.
right,
Calvin.
soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one of the things that they're talking about now is accidental landlords again. Remember that?
Sure.
Way back in the day, that people are saying, "Hey, I'm going to move, but man, I've got a 3% interest
Pretty
rate.
sweet scenario to hang on to that
I'm
property.
going to hang on to this rate. I'm going to rent it out," and they're kind of the accidental landlords are coming back into the market.
I don't know if I buy that.
Okay, it was an article.
Unintended
It was on all
Well,
the news
if
channels.
people are moving out of state, senior, so people are going to move out of state for a job or whatever, that makes a lot of sense that you might just hang on to that property.
Thanks, Keith.
Okay, it might make sense for some people to hang on to the property if they have that mindset, but let me tell you, most of the people who are moving up need the equity out of the property, number one. Number two, the incidental landlord came about because they couldn't sell the property. They were forced to hold on to it. No one's forcing anybody to hold the property here.
No, they just like the financial position that renting
Provides.
Small number of people.
According to the article,
Made a good
Keith,
article.
is really big. It's a really big number. So.
2%.
Yeah.
Mortgage apps, well, probably it's like anything. They're looking for a headline.
Just like what
I'm
was your
sharing
first
the
headline?
information.
The biggest
Election
jump
year
in
has
biggest jump in
the last month, the last
real big.
3 weeks.
Point.
So
The hugest increase in the last 48 hours.
yeah, mortgage apps though are up 9% on purchase, 10% on refinances. So we are seeing an increase in refinances, which will lead to some questions again on some of the appraisal stuff. But we're seeing that because there's a lot of debt consolidation. We talk about it every week. There's a ton of short-term debt out there, credit card debt, high interest rate debt, that when you can consolidate that back down, even though your rate's probably going to have a 6 in front of it, it's better than having a bunch
22.
of debt at 22 to 28%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you
mortgage
kind
interest
of-
rates are high, you think, but
Yeah.
consumer debt is gross.
It's gross. And I've been talking to some people. So,
The big banks, Kelvin, are increasing their reserve amounts too for write-offs based on that. They're seeing the same thing.
Yep.
They're seeing this huge $1 trillion
It's over a trillion. Yeah, went over $1 trillion.
credit
now,
card debt, and they're like, there's going to be a large chunk of these that are just going to go bad. So they're increasing their reserves right now.
Yeah. So it is something that if you're in a situation or your kids are in a situation where they've got some credit card debt, you hear them talking about it, it might be worth having that conversation, because we have some really good calculators that we take the existing debt, we show you kind of what the blended rate is, where you're at now, where you'll be. You're always in better shape. Plus, we also have the tax deduction of the interest, which helps a little bit. We're in that season as well. So there are some things and good conversations that we're having around that. The other thing that we're doing is we're going back through all of our pre-approvals of probably the last 6 months, 8 months, and going, okay, you have more purchasing power than you thought. Because as rates came down from, let's say 7.5 to 6.5, that's another $272 a month of purchasing power.
Another 50,000.
Yeah. So now we're going, okay, hey, we have some room here again. So maybe you couldn't find that home because, you guys upsell it and the appraisers like
Knocking it back
knocking
down.
back
Rubber
down.
stamping it.
Rubber stamping it. That's
boom.
what it is.
Yeah, I wish. God, do I wish. That's not what it is.
We're protecting you.
Yeah, thank you for protecting me. Thanks for protecting me against myself. That came out of counseling.
Trust me, you need that.
Oh, there's a lot of counseling.
All right.
in this
Still
room.
can't make my payments.
I still can't. So anyway, so we do have more purchasing power, which is good. So if you were looking and you said, I just can't afford anything, might be time to re-look at it again and go, hey, I've got some room again. I can increase my
Right, and with values coming down, I mean, you get even
values
more.
coming
Oh,
down
my goodness.
3%.
Probably get that fifth bedroom.
Yeah. That's worth absolutely nothing. All right, what else do we got?
There's
That's
a
it,
lot
that's
here
it,
that
that's it.
you'd have to have listened to the entire show,
Yeah.
which most people do,
Just go back.
to
go
pick
to our
up
YouTube
on the
channel. Go back.
inside jokes that we're throwing out there
Right.
now.
I do want to mention that in an earlier segment, the appraiser did say that this is not an exact science. However, most appraisers do think they are. an exact
I got a
science.
question about garage space. Can we get? You're kind of
no,
babbling?
No, now I'm on page 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Value for pools, hot tubs, saunas, those type of things. How do you value them? Because Keith will say, hey, it's worth a lot. Then he'll say it's worth nothing. I can't get a straight answer.
Well, the answer is it depends.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
So, saunas, things like that, are
Yeah.
generally personal property, so they have nothing to do with it.
Well,
like,
if it's built into the house.
if it's built in, it might have some value.
Okay.
For pools, I always say
In-ground, not your stand-up blow-up from Walmart. It's the in-ground.
no. If it's actually attached to if it's actually an in-ground pool, it could have value depending on the price range of the home. I always say it's gift with purchase. It's like lipstick at the Clinique counter. That if you buy the house, you get the pool for free. I don't know the price range right now. It totally depends on the neighborhood, but you have to be at least over 800,000 in general, sort of, to have it worth something. If you've done an open house, standing in a property, and you're in a house with a pool that's listed for 300,000, the first people always walk in and say, "What does it cost to fill in the pool?"
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't understand.
Yep.
You Minnesotans will go swimming in Lake Minnetonka with all the oil and the algae and the fish and the boats and all the noise and the jet skis, but you won't pay for your own heated, clean pool. So. You have to, as appraisers,
personal.
I know,
but a lot of people do. I mean,
but I have to take the personal out of it and give the value where it is. But most people see the pool as an expense and as a liability.
Mm-hmm.
On lower value.
On lower values, until you've got all the money to pay for it all and not worry about it.
At a certain price point, and almost people are expecting it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right. Especially if you're closer to the lake. The closer you are to the water, the more often there are pools. So,
that's interesting.
But built-in spas and things like that are pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they tend to only be in the higher value homes where there's a whole bunch of flexibility anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see a built-in spa that has any value in a 1,100 square foot Rambler.
Right.
It might even deter from value detract because now you lost a bathroom or now you lost that extra bedroom.
So I hear you saying on higher value homes, you have a lot more flexibility in terms of wiggle room, I would call it. Okay. On
I don't know if it's that. I think it's that on a higher value home. Some of those amenities become
standard.
Expected.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not so much that you're going to give value to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're going to remove value if it doesn't have it. It's missing something. You've got a house that is claimed to be worth $900,000 or $1.2 million or $1.3 million or whatever it is, and there's no pool, and you have no workout room, and well, what makes this thing worth that then?
Yeah.
Yeah, certain neighborhoods you expect a sport court at that price, definitely.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
What about garage space?
It depends.
Good Lord.
Good Lord. Think about the size of the lot.
Uh-huh.
If you're in South Minneapolis on a 0.23 acre lot and you've got a 2-car garage, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a 3-car garage, you no longer have a yard for kids or pets.
Okay.
But if you go out to the suburbs, if you're out here in Eagan, Lakeville, whatever, you better have a 3-car garage or you're not going to sell the house because everybody needs space for their toys.
Mm-hmm.
So that garage space depends on where the house is and what it does to the rest of the property.
How do you view the difference between a tandem garage, a 4-car garage, but it's a 2-car tandem?
So value is one thing, and how we report it on the appraisal is another thing. On the appraisal, a tandem garage where you park one car in front of the other one, that is going to show up as a 1-car garage on the appraisal because our rule is if you have to move a vehicle to get out of the garage, then you can't call it a 2-car.
Boy,
Relax.
That's funny. No, I think that's right. Realtors will lose their mind.
Thank you. Okay.
That's 2-car because you can stack them in there and then have a lift and have one go up.
I've always wondered about San Francisco because they do have mall and elevators.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we don't give extra value for that. If it's a real 2-car and it is double depth, yes, that has quite a bit of value. If it's just got an extra 5 feet or something, it's a nice workshop.
Mm-hmm.
The part of the problem is that our MLS isn't necessarily great on telling us how big the garages are. We do have a category for that now to give garage dimensions.
Square footage.
Yeah.
And dimension, but nobody fills it out.
Right. So again, it depends.
I think a lot of things depend, and
Just call me.
adding and subtracting to value is an art, not an exact science.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. We appreciate your time.
Happy to.
This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. We're going to head out 612-627-8000. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com. Give Calvin a call, 651-231-2500. See you next week.